Hi there, this is Urs Heckmann, and we have a brief overview of Zebralette 3. And so here, these are a couple of slides that I go through first, and then I'll do a bit of a live demo, basically. So Zebralette 3. Most important thing, this is a beta version, it's work in progress, it's nowhere near finished. Although I think it has all the features that we want, but there may still be glitches, particularly in the UI. So we've gone through the thing that now everything in our UI is vector-based. So this is all SVGs instead of bitmaps, and that is a lot of different kind of drawing than what we used before. So on Windows we have a few glitches still, but we'll address them in due time. And the audio is almost there, I would say. There might be some bugs, and if we fix them, the sound might change a little bit, but not too much. So the interface. At the top is the top bar, which is something that you have in almost all of our plugins. And it's got like the Zebralette logo with a revision number, which tells you what revision you're having. The higher the number, the newer. Then it's got the format like AU Mac x64, so it's on Intel Mac currently. That's what that tells you. And then there's transpose and fine tune and the MIDI activity LED. Then there's the value display with preset navigation buttons. And then there's the preset button, which gets you to a preset browser, and you can save presets from there. That's up there. Then there's the under-redo combination, the output volume, and the cog wheel goes to the preferences. The preferences have the MIDI learn. That's all the stuff that you know from our other plugins anyway. The UHE logo has a couple of links, and yeah, nothing special about that, but yeah, let's continue. Oscillator. The oscillator is the core piece of Zebralette. So this is why we're doing this, right? And Zebralette has always been a single Zebra oscillator, basically as its own synthesizer, and it's no different here. So you got your oscillator parameters, right? So you have tune, panning, volume, that kind of stuff. And then you've got a waveform editor. So again, like in Zebra 2, or in Zebralette 2, you can design your own waveforms, but they're always curve-based now. So they're always based on splines, and they can morph. And that's all very similar, but the editing has become a lot more mature than it used to be. Everything is a lot more mature. Then next to that, on the right-hand side, are two oscillator effects, which I will only touch briefly in this video. I will concentrate on what the oscillator does and what the structure of the oscillator is, but that's later. So then, middle section. The middle section of Zebralette 3 holds like the voice control, which is like the polyphony and polymonolegato modes, the VCO, whether it should be the gate or the envelope, and we will try to add the MSEG to that. That's an ongoing discussion, and that's something that we will discuss publicly in the coming months and see where we go with it. And then next to that is the ADSR envelope. That's your classic envelope for the volume or whatever you want to modulate with it. And then there are two identical LFOs. Both LFOs are voice-based, but just like in Hive or in Basil, or Hive or Basil have these oscillators. Just like there, when you set restart to sync, they're in sync with each other, so they're like global LFOs, and they sync to the host tempo or to the song position. Below that is the MSEG. That's the other core part of Zebralette, and the other big news for this plugin. So the MSEG in Zebra 2 had a different editor than the Oscillator waveform editor, and that has changed. So these two editors are now the same. There are, of course, differences between waveforms and between envelopes, like envelopes have loops, envelopes can have different length, waveforms are always constrained to their phase, like going from 0 to 1 or 0 to 2 pi, whichever way you want to see it. And yeah, so this is the difference, but otherwise all the tools are more or less the same, like there's 95% overlap in tools. And new in the MSEG and Zebra 3 is just like the oscillator waveforms, the MSEGs can morph, so there can be 2 or 3 or 5 or currently up to 7, later maybe up to 8 different snapshots, and you can morph between them and make, you know, different rhythmic things or whatever there is. And then next, effects. So a little effects section here. There's a delay and a reverb, and these are the same modules that you'd find in Hive or in Diva or even in Repro. Repro probably a bit more simple, and but it's the same kind of stuff. And they have these this mix section there where you can set the mix of delay and the mix of reverb and the on-off buttons for them. You can switch them off. That's a good thing. Then keyboard control with the usual things like pitch bend, depth up and down, glide, pitch wheel, mod wheel. And also, just like in Hive, there's the scale-based quantizer, so you can punch in a couple of keys, and what you'll hear is only ever those keys. And then if you play any other key, it will be transposed to the next punched-in key there. And then new in Zebralette, a mod matrix. This is the same kind of mod matrix that you have in Hive. It's very powerful. It's got like source and a wire source that you can multiply the source with, and then each slot has like 2 targets with selectable depth and selectable curve, a rectifier, a quantizer, sample and hold, and a slew limiter with a few preset slew limits, like preset settings. That's very powerful, and you know the mod matrix, they can modulate itself or themselves among each other and all of that, and everything that has a knob or a fader like in the ADSR can be modulated and reached via the mod matrix, including the effects, and of course a lot of the morphing and all of that kind of stuff, right? So that's that. So here is now Zebralette 3 live and playable as a plugin, yay. So the oscillator, the main thing is the oscillator, so that's what we have to talk about. So here are your usual suspects as shown before, like tune, pan, volume, and in this instance there's also detune and width, and they are typical for the wavetable renderer. I'll show you what that means. So if you go to 16, right, and also wait. Yeah, can go mono or full width and all that kind of stuff. And apart from the wavetable renderer, there's also an additive renderer, and this thing is kind of crazy. So it's still a sawtooth here, but it's played with, in this instance, 256 harmonics, which are represented by individual sine wave oscillators. So you've got like up to, let's say, 1024 sine wave oscillators rummaging there and recreating the spectrum of the waveform. And because they're free running, we can change their frequency relative to each other. They're always changed relative to the fundamental frequency, and the way they change depends on this modifier. And the first one is expansion, so it does exactly that. It expands the frequencies of the harmonics into inharmonic territory and then up to an octave higher each. So at the end, they're all odd harmonics, because all the even harmonics are where odd harmonics used to be, and then all the odd harmonics are like, well, on the next or over next odd harmonic slot. And the opposite is compression, right? So all harmonics got deflated onto the fundamental frequency. So this is what it sounds like when 256 sine oscillators play the same frequency. It sounds like a sine. But then when we go away from that, sounds like this. That's funky stuff. And then there's a couple more. I would like to keep it brief and just say some are harmonic, but some are inharmonic. And let's take the most simple one here, wild randomness. So every keystroke, a new random spectrum. And you can set a dynamic range of how much randomness there is. It's like this is brutal. In this mode, the spectrum can even have harmonics that are below the fundamental, and then ordered, right? They're random, but they're like one after the other randomized, so they don't ever change their order. And then just one harmonic, just the randomness about from one harmonic to the next. And then we can add a little bit noise. Let's just see with a more with something like expansion. Oh, actually, let's go and make some clusters. Here many harmonics come together in clusters. That's what it says, right? And then you have this repeating, beating, and when you add some noise, this gets broken up and becomes more unpredictable. So the noise here is a little bit more like a drift in the beginning, and then it becomes a little bit more random, and in the last half or last third, it actually becomes noisy. Yeah, let's start about the additive renderer for now. There's one special mode I just briefly go into. It's this one, the curve mode. So in the curve mode, you can actually draw the bending of the harmonic. So you can create a curve, draw it there, and then bend the harmonics in that way. But that goes too far to show that right now. So back to a sawtooth, right? So the thing about Zebra has always been that you could morph waveforms, and it's the same here. So we have this sawtooth here, and we can morph it into a triangle. All right, sawtooth here, triangle there. And what we can do is we can just change the sawtooth into something else, like this. So the difference between Zebra 2 and Zebra 3, or Zebralette 3 in this instance, is that the curves can now have a completely different number of points. And like this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this is 3, and they can still smoothly morph. And of course, the more similar they are, the more likely it's very predictable. Right. Okay. So much for that. And then I can select points, and I can use backspace to delete them. And so this way I go back quickly. And then in the background here you see this line, and that's like an oscilloscope of the waveform. And you can use that either in the time domain or in the frequency. So you can also look at the spectrum. Right, so the triangle waveform only has odd harmonics, so that's what it looks like. And yeah, so you can either look at the spectrum or at the actual waveform. And what the other thing you can do is you can do a similar thing here. So we can treat both the sawtooth here and the triangle as a spectrum, and that's here in the curve source. So currently it's curved geometry. So a sawtooth is a sawtooth, a triangle is a triangle. But once it's a spectrum, it sounds very different. And this can get quite loud. Let's go down here a bit. And when I go to frequency, you see this is what it looks like. So the triangle becomes this kind of spectrum. And the sawtooth almost looks like a sawtooth and sounds like a sawtooth, but we can low pass it and we can go. Right? So that's the curve as a spectrum. And I go back to geometry, just normal waveforms. To the terminology, it's important to know. These are curves, and they can either be spectrums or waveforms. And just like there can be different things there, they can be different things somewhere else as well. Like here in the MSEG, it's an envelope, right? So, but it's the same kind of editor. So all these things, all the functions here, how you interact here, are the same as here. Double click gets you new points, multi-selection, backspace to delete, drag them around, that kind of stuff. And oh yeah, important, zoom, right? The scrollable zooms. If a point is selected, it'll zoom into that point or out, right, like that. And clicking a segment and dragging it does this thing. Also works in multi-selection. And you see that the cursor changes, right? So here it's the selection tool. That's what this cursor means. clicking into nothing will unselect everything. And once you can do something with it, the cursor will change, right? So, and this triangular cursor, that's what we call the arrow tool. That's the most important tool because it just moves things, right? And well, let's have a look here. And you can take something, and when you drag it on a point, you can drag it around. And the point that you have in under your cursor also snaps to the grid, right? So that kind of stuff. It's quite useful. You can zoom in if you wanna, if you wanna go somewhere and I wanna go really close to this, but I don't want to snap. You can go very, very, very close, right? Or just snap, whichever. Okay, and then important thing is, yeah, the morphing. We've seen that, but usually while you work on a curve, you just want to listen to that curve, right? The morph might have a LFO or something. Let's put an LFO on it, like this, and we go here in the middle, and we just do this, right? That's no LFO2. And then you want to edit this curve any further, and you don't know, you don't know what it is or what it does. Then you can press pre-listen, and now you will just, no matter what the modulation, whatever it is, with pre-listen you will just listen to the curve that you're adjusting, that you're working on, right? Okay, and then there's another thing, and that is, just like in Zebralette 2, we have a bigger editor, right? Which is an important thing. So here's the bigger editor. Looks like this. So this is exactly the same as the small editor before. And up here you can add curves. You can add morphed curves. So this is morphed between this one and that one. And I can take this and duplicate this one, and all sorts of things. We can hopefully also remove them. Oh yeah, you can delete a curve and delete curves and delete curves, right? Yeah. Okay. So, and what we can do is we can change this. We can change the grid, and then we've seen the spectral mode, right? So how this is interpreted as a spectrum, and if you want to know exactly where your harmonics are, you can switch on the harmonic grid, and it's like this. So here's the fundamental, and if we go there and actually do this, not here, but in curved spectrum, right? So now it's just the fundamental, and then I bring in, let's say this one is obviously the fourth harmonic. I'll do this and this, so I have a little gap there. And I can take this and there might be another one somewhere close, right? So, and you can always zoom in, and then you can double click this, and you zoom out. When you double click again, you're back in there where you just were, right? Yeah. And this way you can create like all your funny spectrums. And you can go like whoop and beautify. Alright, you can go crazy in every way. Wow, this is gonna be loud. Let me just. Oh, okay, not too loud. Good. And we flip back. Bump. And there are loads and loads of functions. You can draw things, you can add points, you can rotate this like through the, like this. And let's go back to not spectrum but waveform. That's, geometry is like much easier to handle, also to visualize. And then here's like a lot of tools to change selections like this, right? We can add points to the selection if we can, and currently we can't for whatever reason. It just didn't do it. As I said, it's a work in progress. Does it do it? No, it doesn't. Doesn't want to do it. Nah, whatever. Maybe it needs this too. No, okay, it doesn't do it. As I said, glitches. Still a few things that have to be sorted eventually. Let's add an empty curve and go to this one. Another thing you can do is you can do Bezier-spline editing like this, right? Then you have like your perfect control over everything that's happening in the curve. You can zoom in there as well. And we're not doing spectrum anymore, so we can switch this off. So we have the normal waveform editing thing here. Yep, that kind of stuff. And another thing that you can do, which is really important even in this small overview where I don't really go into detail with everything. But you see here is now like an S shape, right? So you can have different shapes. So you can do S shapes, and the classic is the L shape. And there are a couple of other variants of it, like this one, right? They're very similar, but useful for different things. I always go back to the L. And then, and here important, the arrow tool, that's your standard tool. That's the tool that you usually go with. All the other tools are specialty tools for all sorts of other things. And one thing you can do is you can edit so-called guide curves. So that's like the same kind of curve, right? It looks pretty much the same, the same editor. You can do the same things, right? And see, so here they cross a couple of times. So what I can do with that is I can like cut above, for instance, Bob, right? So then everything that's above is cut away. And if I switch I can switch between the guide curve and the normal curve by clicking here. So that's our curve, the one that we listen to, right? And there's the guide curve. So we have 3 of them, right? So, and we can make one. Let's make this one into a triangle. Triangle, boom here, boom there. Oh, we don't need that. So, and triangle would be here. And then if we use sinomatic, it becomes a sine wave, or a raised cosine actually. And then I can use this and say I want to cut everything that's below it from the original curve, right? Well, looks like this then. So then the curve, the actual curve, looks like this. I switched guides off, right? So I cut everything that was below. Sounds like this. So this is like a very, very advanced editor, and I don't want to go into full detail because we'll have to have a whole extra series on this eventually. Like here you can draw segments, different kinds of segments for different kinds of things, right? And here this is the editor, which is very interesting, where you do all the morphing. and where you have like different ways to morph stuff. Yeah, looks a bit complicated. You get used to it, and it's very powerful. Like you can ease the morph in and out, right? So, and then if I go off from pre-listen and I delete this curve, take this curve there, then we can actually listen to it. LFO off. So different morph things. Crossfade is a bit boring. It's almost like I mean, it is a crossfade. So, but this one, peaks and valleys, is the standard. Always works. Always has pretty good results. Sometimes you need to work a little bit on it, but usually that's it. So, and then after some time, you have created your curves and all your stuff, right? And what you can do now that's new here is we can export this to Hive, which also exports it to Zerum then. So the whole morph, like from here to there, that thing, we just go here, export WAV, boom, and it's saved as that. And I can show the folder, right? And there it is. And this is the waveform. So they're just like saved with a date and time, and well, that's it, right? So, and then I can open it with, let's say, Ocean Audio. Boom, there it is. That's our waveform, and it's saved with 101 frames, which corresponds to our curve morph parameter with from 0 to 100. And you can actually really, you can put this into your Hive wavetable library or into your Zerum library, and it will automatically be recognized as a wavetable that can be morphed through. Yeah, so that's it about the oscillators for now. Just very briefly, let me go here briefly. Oscillator effects, like low pass and stuff, and you can see the graph here. The graph in the background can either be pre-effects, which is this, then you just see the curve that you're editing, or post-effects, which is this. And again, we can do frequency domain or time domain. And so you got two oscillator effects, but the interesting thing about oscillator effects is that, like I showed you that in the additive renderer, you can use these curves as well, and you can do that in the oscillator effects as well. Some have that. The first one is called curve filter. What will it be? You use a curve as a filter. So what you do is you can switch to this mode, and you can see what the curve looks like that's currently used as a filter. I have no idea what it... So this would be like a bandpass filter, right? And let's say this one would be like a low pass filter. Start high. And this is basically what the curve defines is the passband of the filter. It's a bit complicated and a bit quick now, but it's important that you understand the concept that the curve can be reused in the oscillator effects. And this low pass, yeah. And you can use the guides for this. So these are the three guide curves, and they just crossfade. Or you can use the curve set. And the curve set is all of that, right? So this is like a format filter type of thing, right? Yeah. And you have two oscillator effects, so you can have even 2 times this kind of stuff. And the idea is that you can, for instance, say, from here to here, I use this part of my curve set for the waveform, and another part that I can edit. I use this part for my curve filter, or yet another curve, right? I mean, this also works with the additive renderer, right? So wherever we are with this, here's the curve shell with the, make it a bit louder. So we can morph through the waveform, we can morph through the filter. And we can morph through guides or curve set as well with our spectral distortion. Okay, head explodes. Yeah, that's what it does, and let's just say it's deep. All right, so it's deep. No worries, the MSEGs do not have nearly that kind of complexity, but the oscillator does. And important thing, as of this point, when you export waveforms to Hive or Serum, it's gonna be just a waveform. There's no oscillator effect on it. We have no good way right now to do that. Because you would like to have like extra curves to morph then. So you need extra curves to modulate the frequencies or the depths and stuff, and we're not gonna do that just yet. Yeah, that's that for now, I guess. And I go back to my slides. That was the oscillator live demo. And next up is exactly what I just talked about. So you have the curve set and you have the guide curves. Guide curves are used to somehow mangle, cut, and do things with the waveforms and spectra that you're designing. And then these curves are used either as geometry or spectrum, and then go through the oscillator effects, and then are either rendered into like a wavetable like a thing. It's basically wavetables then, but they're dynamically created, and or the additive synth with the up to 1000 sine oscillators, and that goes to the VCA with the panning and all of that. That's the basically the voice architecture of Zebralette and the architecture of a single oscillator. And why is it put like this? I have a slide for that as well. So the one thing down here, the curves, that's the data. That's what you can work on, create, mangle, do with, and that's how you create waveforms and all of that. And then the other stuff here, those are the algorithms that take this and do something with it. And just like I said, and that is maybe the thing that the main realization about it all is that when you have this structure, both the curve set as well as the guide curves can be reused in other areas of the oscillator. So in the effects section, like the FX1, FX2 oscillator effects, like filters, that kind of stuff. But you can do more with it. You can draw formants and windows and things, and you can remap the phase of the oscillator with it. It's crazy stuff. And in the additive synth, you can actually create a curve that describes how the spectral distortion detunes the harmonics, right, between the fundamental and 1 octave higher. That's crazy stuff. And with that, I would like to conclude this first brief overview of Zebralette 3. Everything else is almost self-explanatory. Once you see how you work with the oscillator, and trust me, this this little editor here is not more complex, not more difficult to grasp or work with than it's always been in Zebra. It's actually easier because there are so many user interface or UX, user experience improvements. And it's the same with the MSEG. The MSEG editor is almost literally the same. It's just, let me just quickly go back here. It lets you do all the same things in that and drag, and you can freely set there's of course snapping here as well. You can freely set the loop points, and you can but you can also snap the loop points to 2 points in the curve, right? And then if you have like a loop that looks like this, you can and you can do this and that, right? And this and that, and all of these things, just as you would like it to have, I hope. And it's actually quite easy. Only that interesting enough, the MSG can morph as well with several up to currently 7, later 8 snapshots or curves within the curve set, and the loop point can move with it and can also be morphed with it. It's all the same thing, the same way. And there's also a big editor, right, as you would expect. And you go back here, and it's always the same editor, right? So you only have to learn one editor, you know both. Quite handy. And that concludes this finally for now. And yeah, hope you can do something with it. That's it. Bye.